Headed by Hello Games, No Man's Sky is an ambitious little title that literally promised players the universe. But how well did it live up to expectations? Well, let's take a look at my experiences with the game and find out. No Man's Sky is a procedurally generated exploration and crafting science fiction game. Wow, that's a mouthful. Essentially, you start this adventure plonked right in the middle of a nameless planet in an undiscovered corner of the universe next to your crashed ship. You have nothing but a jetpack, your life support suit, and a mining laser for gathering resources. And then it pretty much cuts you loose, letting you figure out the rest. Well, it doesn't leave you totally aimless. There are, in fact, two big forces in this space race that, for one reason or another, are vying for your attention, and the game makes it very clear that their existence, their goals for you, and your method of achieving those goals will be diametrically opposed to one another. But no matter which path you choose, your basic task will remain the same. Reach the center of the universe, all while meeting aliens, learning their languages, and maybe uncovering some unsettling details about what this journey really entails. Now, here's the crazy bit about all this. You aren't the only one with this goal. There are thousands of other explorers out there in the form of your fellow players, all trying to lay claim to the galaxies, planets, and the various plant and animal species that inhabit them before you do. It's entirely possible you could come across these places and see their names, but whether or not you'll see them, I'll talk about in a sec. The concept itself is intriguing to me. I mean, never mind the grandeur of a phrase like, reach the center of the universe. I found myself getting especially curious about the abandoned settlements out there, discovering these cryptic stories from explorers long past insanity and tortured by some Cthulhu-esque monster that apparently lurked out there somewhere. In some aspects, it tickled that same nerve that Fallout does, giving me this long untouched land where remnants of something fantastical lay waiting to be found. But the means by which you uncover those remnants is always where a game like this will sink or swim. And this is where things are going to start getting divisive. Everything in No Man's Sky costs resources. Resources you normally get by using your mining laser to tear apart specific pieces of the environment. Even the act of lifting your ship off the ground will cost you something, and your launch thruster can only sustain 4 liftoffs at most before you have to refuel it with plutonium. Places like launch pads can help you save some of that fuel, but eventually you're going to have to drop your search for monoliths and alien bases to go on the lookout for the distinctive glow of red crystal. And don't think you can stockpile this stuff either. Both your suit and your ship have very limited inventory space, especially early on. Your suit's inventory can be expanded fairly easily, but those expansions cost credits, meaning if you want them, you'll have to sell some of the resources you need just to progress in the first place to afford them. Resources, I remind you, you won't have the room to carry anyways because space is so limited. You can also transfer items to your ship, but your ship's space can't be upgraded. In fact, the only way to get more inventory space for your ship is to buy a new ship, which costs significantly more than getting a suit expansion, I'll tell you that. You could alternatively find a crashed and abandoned ship, but it takes so many resources that you likely won't have when you find them to get them up and running again that it might not even feel like it's worth it. Even the act of getting credits themselves requires you to go out of your way. Once you've filled up your bags, you either have to be lucky enough to find a trade terminal on the planet itself, or lift off into the atmosphere so you can go to that system's space station. Also bear in mind that surface terminals can't access your ship's inventory as well as your suits like the space station can, meaning if you have items in your cargo hold that need dumping onto the market, you either have to make a long and arduous trek back to your ship to fetch them, or just bite the bullet and lift off so you can spend 5 minutes going back and forth from the space station instead of doing what you actually want to be doing. Also, you can make this whole cycle of exploring, collecting, building, and moving on marginally less painful. Oh, and here's the best part. Upgrades to your suit and ship, like increased shields or more health, also take up a spot in your inventory. So when you come across a planet that has a hostile atmosphere and you need some extra life support or filters installed in your suit to compensate, you have to make the choice between sacrificing inventory space just to make exploration even feasible or abandoning the planet altogether because it's too much of a hassle. Never mind that these things cost resources themselves to fuel in the first place. I never found myself holding on to upgrades that I didn't need anymore on new planets simply because one more slot to put items in was that precious. This is a mess. Sure, finding an Atlas relay or that beautiful moment where you've learned enough words to actually understand something an alien said to you are brilliant highlights. It's a lot of fun coming across a plaque in the middle of nowhere and learning more about the species' culture and their place in the grand scheme of things. But the amount of hoops you have to jump through to get to those points is more than considerable. No Man's Sky's greatest crime is that while the whole appeal of the game is exploration, mechanically it hampers your ability to do so at every possible turn. And that's to say nothing about the laundry list of other promises it's broken. There is a quite extensive article out there of features that No Man's Sky was advertised to have but launched without, not the least of which being proper multiplayer. And yes, that was a promised feature, despite what anyone may tell you.
Will you be able to play with your friends? Yeah.
Of course, they then later changed their tune on that front. People haven't been able to see each other online despite being on the same planet in the same place. Some people have claimed there might have been a server error in that incident, but then there's the fact that you don't need PlayStation Plus to play this, which is required for multiplayer, lest we forget. There's that now infamous sticker on the back of the collector's edition trying to hide the online symbol, and of course Hello Games is being completely silent on the issue right now, leaving people to assume the worst and fill in the blanks themselves. If you want to read the full list, check the link in the description below. It should be right underneath the fold. But suffice to say, if you were one of the people that followed the long and often troubled development of this thing, the end result was pretty disappointing. No Man's Sky is going to appeal to a very specific audience. I should know because I'm part of it. The biggest criticism you could levy against the game is that it requires a lot of time and devotion just to get to the point where all of the issues I've discussed are no longer an issue. And even then, you barely have any meaningful experiences to show for it. That's a completely valid concern, and if you're someone that needs a satisfying payoff to come out of every single action in a game, then you're probably not going to get much out of this. But then there are the people in my camp who think the exploration in itself is the payoff. The kind who just likes watching numbers go up and feeling like they're slowly leaving a tangible and permanent impact on this virtual universe. But even then, No Man's Sky drops the ball in a lot of ways. The near constant micromanagement makes it hard for me to play for long periods without getting mentally exhausted. And even when I got to the good stuff, I saw the same repeating patterns and outcomes so many times that after 20 or so hours, I already felt like I'd seen everything. At a certain point, I just lacked the drive to continue on. And for a game that's all about the journey and not the destination, that is a real shame.